Mike, you should ask your audience to honestly say, should you really be inviting Dave? I think I think they're suffering Dave overload.
Uh,
Dave's not here, as they say in Firesign Theater.
well, I don't know. That's true. Remember when you were gone for a little while? People were all wondering, where you were at. Everyone was concerned. I got messages from people. I mean, I think Melody, you might have messaged me wondering where Dave was.
Yeah.
Matt Smith was wondering
Sure
where you
did.
were.
Yeah, yeah, okay. I should disappear again. That was fun.
No. Mike and I'll come find you if you disappear
Right.
again.
I know where to find you. Actually,
He does. He does. He's a stalker.
Well, I think this is probably the fastest turnaround I've ever had a repeat guest on, considering you were just on yesterday, Dave, and talking with Aaron, and so it's perfect timing for all this. I mean, we spent 2 hours talking about AI, and then Michael Burry is back in the news. Was it late last night or yesterday? And Melody,
Yeah.
you listened to it, and share with Dave and I what your thoughts are on that conversation.
Yes, please do. Yes.
And get all fired up too. Don't hold back.
Yeah.
Let it go. Let it rip. Right, Dave?
Obviously Aaron is very smart and I can tell that. I'm not, I've certainly followed some of his work, not, religiously, but what I would say, there are a couple of things in that conversation that struck me. So first of all, what I do know is I know corporate America very well. As I was saying to you, Mike, I was a prisoner there for, over 20 years. I know how these corporations work. And the problem is that, AI within those corporations, they simply cannot be successful delivering on this right now under this current kind of operating fashion of the corporations, which is that they have to relentlessly do share backs, make sure that they're making money, are giving it back to the shareholders. We do not invest in research and development anymore. And so I can tell you, if you're living anywhere except for in the tech bubble, and you can be in the tech bubble and against the tech bubble at the same time, if you know what I mean, because this is the technocracy. These technology folks, it's almost like a cult, and they have a belief system that most of the United States does not share. And so you have to keep that perspective that even people, because they're surrounded by all of this ideology, their understanding of the world, and they're very much steeped into it. But what real world application really doesn't concern them as much as like, I want to learn all about me. So let's take the Aaron example of the mapping of his genome that he quickly did and how. But so I would ask, to what purpose is that? I can tell you that people were born with genetic markers that said they might get a disease that they ultimately never got. And he kind of mentioned saying things like, well, now I need to do vitamin D supplements. Well, how do we even know? I mean, I don't know about you guys. I'm not real confident in any of our science anymore of what is actually. So we have this thing where we're told, okay, this is what this means. And so at some, you're believing there's some, and I'm probably going to get this wrong because it's been years since philosophy, but a priori, like reason, like there's some baseline truth, right? That somehow they can build on top of AI. And I'm probably not making any sense, but this faith in sort of a foundation that this stuff could be built onto, I think is a little bizarre. And it reminds me of, and I've met so many of these tech guys, and they aren't living in reality. It's the reality they want to create. Oftentimes, based on certain lack, and I'm not saying that's Aaron at all. I don't know him. I mean, I like I say, I respect a lot of his work, but I want us to. So, firstly, I can tell you this: that AI in corporate America is not going to be a thing at scale for some time, and in fact, we'll probably have to go through the crash before we get there. But then, secondly, for what purpose? because I can tell you the companies that use it, people are furious. They're angry. They don't want to use those companies anymore. They don't want to call and get a chat bot. And so like we're being forced in some ways to accept this, but I think humanity is going to say no thank you, and you will start to see shifts in consumption around I want to work with a company that doesn't do this, that I'm not talking to a chat bot. I think, so when we get the
chat bot.
yeah,
Chat
but it's probably better. Yeah. And so I think once
There's
we
an
get,
analogy here,
Go
by
ahead.
the way. Let me just jump in on an analogy. You used to call and you'd always get overseas help desks.
Right.
You're getting more American help desks now. So you're
Right.
saying the free market of ideas will bring it back to a human level. But I do believe that we're going to go through the valley of death en route. I don't find what you said inconsistent with what Aaron was saying. Aaron loves the stuff in his own way because that's his world. I mean,
That's right.
as he said, he started an online shopping network before Amazon did. Right?
Yeah.
This guy is
He's been
ground
in it.
zero.
Yeah,
He's
he
been in
is.
it. He
Yeah.
knows this world.
Yep.
And
Agree.
so I think Aaron has this amazing mix of enthusiasm for tech and fear of the technologists. So I think he sees this cultive personality
Right.
as a problem. He acknowledged repeatedly it was a problem. So in many ways, I think Aaron. That what scared me about Aaron's discussion was that he was able to see both sides, and he left me under my desk. He
Yeah.
had me thinking, holy shit. And I do think we're going to overdo it. I think companies that are right now failing for good old fashioned reasons are saying that they're laying off people because they want to go into AI. And it's just a cover story. So they don't have to say, oh, by the way, our customers are no longer buying our product. They're
Mhm.
saying, oh, we're going to cut employees to do AI, which sounds very upbeat.
Right.
And I think it's just a pure scam.
Well, that's what Melody touched on. I mean, cut you off, Melody, but that's what Melody touched on in our last conversation. That it was just
Right.
a big smoke screen for how
That's
bad
right.
things are. And to add to that, I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday. They're closing 300 Wendy's restaurants. I've never seen. I mean, the Big Bacon Classic. Like I grew up eating that. Like I've never seen those types of to that. That sounds like a lot to me. No. 300 Wendy's restaurants?
I don't know. Here's something
It
I
is.
noticed. I noticed going. I would drive by McDonald's post COVID, and I thought they were printing money because the line of cars was very long. And then it clicked one day. I go, it's one cash register. The
Also, they have
drive-through,
right.
one cash register.
And they have labor shortages because nobody wants to work those jobs. This
Right.
is why people would say the airports were busy. It was like, no, they're really not. There's people like piled out in the concourse because you can't get a table in the restaurant because there's nobody there to work. And so there's just so many, I think, optical illusions. But yeah, so I agree with you, Dave. I felt like he did. He definitely talked about how a lot of it wasn't there, right? But he talked about how a lot of it he thinks is there. But this is, I think, I was left with after that conversation is what purpose? Like what purpose? Like what are we driving toward with this technology? Because I told Michael this before you got on, I used to be the biggest enthusiast around tech because I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to do better customer service. We're going to improve people's lives because you're sitting in corporate like with Band-Aids and, popsicle sticks and you don't have enough money to do your job. That was what my corporate life was like. And so I was like, oh, we'll get efficiency. Everybody will be happier. And then, project after project after project after project just completely failed. But it's like, okay, so if we take the premise, and you and I talked about this before, that, bullshit jobs, right? That's the reality. It's like we've got a bunch of BS jobs, and I would argue that mine was. Like if we really were focused on productive jobs, like what part would AI play in that exactly? And what future are we driving toward? And I feel like those, and I'm not talking about like within even what he was saying, It's as if, well, we have to do it because they're going to do it. And if they do it, they're going to crush us. So we have to do it. And I find that reasoning,
But
I don't.
I don't think he was endorsing that. He wasn't endorsing that, in my opinion. What he was saying is that is the reasoning being used. That's why Sam Altman is saying, you have to support us, and why Jensen Huang is saying China is going to win, because he's really saying to Trump, you have to dump more money into Sam Altman so he'll buy my chips. And so I do believe that there is an arms race, and there's going to be N-1 losers. and where ends the number of big players. Now, the problem is the big players are huge. They're enough to sink the Titanic.
So I guess my point is, like, a lot of his message was, you have to get this alternative tech. We have to work really hard because we're going to lose. So even he's not using the logic, say, of Jensen Huang or Sam Altman about, government involvement, but his overall message was, we're running out of time and we have to fight this. And so I don't disagree that we have to forge some sort of resistance to that future. But I think that it's not necessarily by AI. I got to be honest with you. So
I hear you. I hear
yeah.
you. You're saying go from AI, make it, dial it back.
So what do you think, Melody, then is the best course of action then?
The best course of action is, honestly, I think we need to have real conversations about what is this? What is the purpose? Like, and, I saw a tweet, I don't know if it's true, I haven't had time to look into it, about the fact that China's not building any more data centers, and they have way fewer than we do. So why do we think we already have 5,000? I've seen them all over the road empty. Or now, after I did that tweet, it's not because I did that tweet, but after we hear from Zero Hedge that there's a data center sitting empty, it can't come online because of the power, and then you hear about a couple more of those. So so are we in a false race? If you believe the whole, I think all of us are just wondering who's in charge, right? But if you believe the globalist narrative, and that would include people from China, I'm sure. They're global citizens. And so what is this, just a fake arms race? Is it just, and everybody knows it. And so, except for all of us useful idiots running around thinking, because I can tell you, it's very easy to get excited about a lot of this stuff. And again, this is not about Aaron, because he has been in it. Like Dave said, he has been around for a long time. But I think you lose sight of what exactly is this going to do? What exactly, as humanity, do we want this to do? Where are we trying to go? I guess would be my question.
I said something that I think is correct, and that is, the more micro you go, the better it will work. So I think as you bring AI to street level, you get success. And that is, it does tasks, for example, that I think you could replace a lot of doctors, because I think a lot of doctors suck.
But if they didn't, would it? Like, so our doctors suck. It's just terrible. They just write prescriptions and they don't. But if they didn't suck,
prescriptions, right?
Yeah, if they didn't suck, would it replace them? Because a good doctor, and I met one a couple weeks ago, I couldn't believe it, still somewhat indoctrinated, but thorough, looking at the whole person, okay? So if doctors didn't suck, would we really need it? Would we need, for instance, Dave, what you described, like the database where, hey, like, here's some of the symptoms, what do you think? And then the doctor would say, okay, well, let me maybe test for that, but that's, if I'm a good doctor, I'm not going to take that I'm not going to take that for like it's the word of God. I'm just going to say, oh, like you described when you're talking to Aaron about how you use AI today. Like, you don't know where to start. Let's figure out, let's just find somewhere to start. And so we're using it to address a problem that we need to address the problem versus, and so I think that we need good doctors again. And AI is not the answer. So I guess that's where, my head is on it.
This reminds me, by the way, of when I drive by a mall that's dead, and I ask, was that a fair trade? The convenience of Amazon at the cost of all the retail.
Right.
And I think not. I think we need both, and we've over. So what did I hear? I heard the railroad build out, for example, is not unlike the AI build out, where they built railroads everywhere, and then there was this gigantic bust. And so AI is going to go through that, and I don't think that's debatable.
Right.
Again, I said I was on a panel discussion, and they kept confusing the AI is here to stay. It's not going away, and I absolutely believe that to be true. But what it actually does is totally not imaginable to me. But AI is also going to be part of a very big financial bust from the perspective of an investor, and you can't confuse those two. So the internet was phenomenal, but it didn't prevent you from losing 85% of your wealth if you had .com stocks, right?
100%.
And so the railroad bust. Here's a stat I heard. I heard something like 50%, some big percent. I'm making up a number, but it's not 2%. Of the tracks that were laid were used once, and that was to run a train out to pull them up.
Right.
And so they overbuilt the railroads.
Right.
On the other hand, a great government program was a president who gets very loud. When I was a kid, was way underrated. I think we now appreciate him. Was Dwight Eisenhower, and his building the interstate highway system was phenomenal.
I agree. It's one of the best things this country ever did. Yeah.
That's right. He came back from Germany and said, holy shit, they've got highways. We don't. We've got to build them. And we didn't do it stupidly. We built beltways around D.C. and we built interstate highways. And you can get from A to Z directly. And
Exactly.
we should have probably done some better railroad work. We probably should have let the railroad bust reappear and the railroad boom reappear and done a little better on that. But so
I think what all this, it's like, what do we want society to be? So, and I think, he sort of referenced that the people that think this is going to be nothing, or whatever, they're going and they want to, grow vegetables. And I don't know exactly what he said, but here's the thing.
The guys who want to grow vegetables are guys who are trying to get voters for the Democratic Party.
I grow vegetables.
Well, they will be voters for the Democratic Party.
But I think, again, we're in a mania, right? And one that's an unhappy one, as you've described, Dave. And I think you're absolutely right. It's a misery mania. And it's like, okay, so maybe let's step back and ask, what do we want society to look like? We want people to have jobs, right? We want to make things again. In fact, had we spent all that COVID money on updating our infrastructure, addressing the power grid, which I have a new theory, guys, that part of this work, this BBB bill, was really to address the grid because it is in such bad shape, but they couldn't sell that. They had to sell, we need it for the data centers. We need it because it's in a very precarious position. But had we spent all that money that we spent in COVID, instead of trying to get people to consume, had we spent it on infrastructure, we would have been in a much better place. Those highways are in terrible shape in many states across this country now, because I do a lot of driving, and it's not like it used to be.
I think COVID, I have this theory, and I haven't been able to let it go, and it kind of hit me back when they did it. It is that if you look at what was happening in the monetary system in late 2019, it was doing its repo spikes, which no one has ever explained in a way that I thought conveyed a knowledge. There's people who explain stuff. I go, I don't understand what the hell you're talking about, but I believe you do, so I'll take it. I don't think anyone ever explained the repo spikes. To me, they were an emergent system. It was a teenager on black ice fishtailing like crazy, and I can't rule out the possibility the lockdown was to put the economy into an induced coma.
Oh, I agree with that. I mean, I definitely agree. You could see all the signs were there.
They were
So-
already cutting rates and panicking in late 19.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. And they were sure at the ready in March.
And going direct. The
Yeah.
white paper from BlackRock, they said the next crisis we have, you're going to have to go direct, which meant give money straight to the people, not to the bankers, which they gave a token gesture to the people. The crooks got more, and then of course the bankers got it all. And the fact that in October of 2019 they're talking about the bailouts which showed up in June of 2020,
Right.
is staggering. It's too coincidental for my taste.